Bhadram karneभिः शृणुयाम देवाः Bhadram pashyemakshabhiryajtraः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति न पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. In this webinar, we are going to actually take a simple topic, and what is special about this webinar or this topic is we will employ a particular metaphor that is supplied by the rishis in Atharva Veda's Mundaka Upanishad. In the second Mundaka, second Khanda, rather, in the second Mundaka, first Khanda. In the second Mundaka, the very first Khanda, there is this very appealing metaphor. God is like a huge, bright, well-lit fire. And all of us, all living beings, are like sparks that have come out from this fire. This illustration is the basis of this webinar, which has been titled Sparks from Fire. However, the general theme is beyond this particular metaphor, or for that matter, beyond this particular Upanishad. The general theme is that eternal question, what's our relation with God? How are God and man, man meaning any human being, woman included, what's the relation between God and man? And such material helps us in several ways. We come to know more clearly the glory of God. We come to know our own divinity, and we come to know that if we have the eyes to see, we are never separate from God. Like some Western poet wrote that beautiful poem, sort of poem, where a man has a vision and all his life appears before his mental eyes like a walk on the sands by a sea. He sees 4 footprints, 2 of God and 2 of himself. And he also, in that particular vision, sees the chronological order. And he notices that from childhood onwards, on every year of the calendar, there were these 4 steps, 2 of God, 2 of his own. But then, to his shock, he finds that during certain years, which were the hardest for him in life, only 2 steps were found. He says, this is unacceptable. That means during the hardest years of my life, God left me alone. There are only 2 steps. Where did the other 2 steps go? And he almost complains to God. God, is this fair? You ditched me. You left me during my adversity. That is when At the end of the poem, God whispers in the ears of this devotee. He says, "Look, those two footprints were mine. I never left you. There are only two footprints and not four at that time, because that is when, or that was when, I was carrying you on my shoulders." And the devotee says, "Oh, how foolish I was! How foolish and incorrect my interpretation was." He realizes. So, in all religions, in the domain of bhakti or devotion, it is pointed out that we are never away from God. It is a folly, it's a blunder to imagine we are away or God is away from us. In this metaphor, in a different way, employing a different setting, the same truth is conveyed, and in Advaita Vedanta, this mantra, particular mantra, the first mantra of the first Munda of the second Mundaka of Mundaka Upanishad of Atharva Veda has much to offer in support of Advaita Vedanta. Let me chant for you this particular mantra. Tadetat satyam yatha sudiptat pavakad visfulingaah sahasrashah prabhavante sarupaah tatha aksharat vividha somya bhavaah prajayante tatra chaivapi yanti. A simple metaphor that is very appealing to us. Poetry appeals to the heart of everyone. What could have been said in direct prose language is expressed in poetry with an imagery, with mention of Sudipta Pavaka. Pavaka is fire. The word Pavaka comes from the verbal root punati, to purify. Pavayati, Pavaka means that which purifies. In Vibhuti Yoga, Lord Sri Krishna says, I am fire among all those things that purify other things. Therefore, the word chosen here too is very appropriate and inspiring. God is purifying, and God is represented here by Pavaka, fire. God is purifying, and thought of God is purifying. Friends, all of us know, despite all the philosophy we have heard or taught, despite so much of satsangs that we have taken part in, our mind somehow carries so many impurities. Lust and greed rise when you don't expect them. Some regrets torment us. Memory of how somebody was unkind to us arises, and even the very sattvic people among us start grinding our teeth. And we wish we could teach that person or that group of people a lesson. And then we wish if we cannot teach them a lesson, hope somebody will teach them a lesson. How could she or he be so unkind to me, etc. These are impurities, and we must go for a purificatory process. For by bearing some ill will against somebody, by wishing ill to somebody, not much may happen to that person. But these negative thoughts will definitely hamper our spiritual progress. They take away our peace of mind. They postpone our spiritual awakening. And that is a big loss. We should not let this happen. We cannot afford to let go of one more life of ours without realizing the supreme truth. Therefore, the word pavaka, which is here in the meaning of fire, for there is a metaphor of fire and sparks, but incidentally, it also means that which is purifying. And inasmuch as fire stands for God here, God and thought of God, remembering God, loving God, being with God is the greatest purifier of our antakarana. Yatha sudiptat pavaka. When fire is well lit, deepta itself means lit. Sudipta means well lit. Naturally, lot of sparks would rise. They rise, they emerge from fire, they stay floating for some time, and they fall back into that huge fire. That is what is said here. Sahasrashaha, in thousands, sahasra. And a thousand is a manner of saying. It could be countless. In the case of creation, the number of individual souls is ananta. There is no limit at all. Sometimes in question and answer sessions, a student asks, if people are getting liberated every now and then, a point should come when all are liberated and creation is finished. Nobody remains. We say infinity by definition is such, no matter how much you take out from it, again infinity alone remains. Purnasya purnamadaya purnameva avashishyate. Therefore, no matter how many souls got liberated, the creation doesn't come to an end. This apparent multiplicity of individual souls will continue to exist. Sahasrashaha prabhavante. So do not understand that it is 1000. This is a language. It is to imply countless jivas, called here bhavaha in the next line. In the metaphor, of course, the word used is visfulingaha. Visfulinga is sparks. Sparks from fire. All the jivas are the sparks, and God or that akshara tattva is fire. In the Mundaka Upanishad, rather than using the word Brahma or Sat or Bhuma, the word that is preferred and employed accordingly is Akshara, imperishable. Right in the beginning, the teacher of Mundaka Upanishad, Angiras, says to Shaunaka, that which helps you know that imperishable Akshara is the higher wisdom, Paravidya. All else is lower wisdom, lower knowledge, Apara Vidya. Sahasraha Prabhavante Sarupaha. This is a very significant word. Why? Sarupa literally means Samana Rupaha. Samana means of the same kind. Rupaha. This word is very important. This word takes the metaphor to a higher level of significance. Otherwise, all religions do say God creates this universe. God creates all living beings. In the Semitic religions, there is some concept of God takes 6 days to create everything and takes rest on the 7th day. In Upanishadic literature, there are various theories of how the Supreme Truth creates this universe, as you and I now know. And here, in the mantra that we have taken up, the word Sarupa is really astonishing. We, the little jivas, are samana rupa with Ishvara, with Akshara. The sparks and the fire, how can they be one? The fire is huge, the spark is tiny. The fire catches anybody's eyes. A spark may go unnoticed. Therefore, the superficial interpretation of this metaphor would make anyone jump to the conclusion that this beyond any doubt shows that God is supreme and we are insignificant. But Advaita Vedanta takes this word Sarupa very seriously. Samana Rupa. Fire also is light and heat. Every spark has light and has heat. What about the size, big and small, huge and tiny, easily noticed and hardly noticed? What about this difference? Advaita Vedanta would say that is not important. That is Upadhi Krita. Upadhi Krita. Adi Shankara in his commentaries comes forward with the well-known Advaita illustration. Whether it's a small pot or a huge pot, what difference does it make to the space? The space which is sukshma, which is extremely subtle as compared with the gross pot made of clay or whatever, copper or steel, anything. That is gross. Space is extremely subtle. No one can hold space. No one can bend space. No one can smell, taste, touch space. No one can have space in his hands. Actually, the hand is in space. So in several ways, this Akasha Tattva is a very appropriate illustration for Brahma, the Supreme Truth. But we must not make the mistake of saying, okay, then Brahma must be Akasha only. No. Akasha, space, also is a part of creation. Space also vanishes. When mind vanishes in deep sleep, in samadhi, when there is no thought, there is no space. The science of Vedanta looks at everything from the awareness point of view. In awareness, when there is thought operating, you have space. When thought subsides, there is no space at all. Modern science goes from outside to inside. Two people are sleeping, let us say. One is sleeping on a huge football field. He is sleeping over there. Pleasant weather, and on the football field he is sleeping. So around him there is vast space. Another person, maybe in a nearby town, he is sleeping in a small room. So from modern scientific point of view, there is a big difference. But Vedanta would say, look from inside. Take an inside-out approach. The person fast asleep in a little cell, a little room, and the person fast asleep on the football field. What is their experience? Both of them actually have the same experience. The deep sleep, sushupti, of a king as well as of a beggar are the same. So from an inside-out approach, you find that space comes and goes. To think that you may not experience space, but there is space for others. Who says this? And what are the credentials of that entity that is saying? Everyone, unless properly exposed to Vedanta, unless properly trained in this way of thinking, would say, this is ridiculous. Whether I am awake or asleep, there is space. When we get up, don't we find space at all? And all such arguments. But all these arguments collapse when you realize that it is totally certain conclusions within the mind. And an illusion, even if one visits that illusion a million times, does not become real. And you can never prove something in its own terms. So you need some other yardstick with which you prove, you verify, you ascertain, and you certify. Now, in these matters, whether we come to the earth and go, or the earth comes into our consciousness and disappears, where is a third parameter? Where is a third instrument? The only way you know the world, you know this universe, is when you are awake. And when you are not awake, there is no universe. Therefore, when our mind becomes more mature, when our mind becomes philosophically more active, we understand that purified mind, that refined mind understands that with due respect to science and technology, who have found out a lot of things, on a fundamental level, the reality of the universe is not confirmed or verified by science. All the great contributions of science, all the marvelous gifts of science are within the domain of this universe, and on a fundamental level, whether this domain is a real domain or an illusory domain, we say God knows. So in Vedanta, in Buddhism, and I guess in some more schools of thought, the reality of this universe is questioned. And let me hastily or let me quickly add, in no way any disrespect is meant to the universe. When we are seriously discussing whether something is real or unreal, it is not about whether it is lovable or not lovable, whether it is to be respected or not respected. We go and watch a movie. We know very well that there is no hero, no heroine, there is no horse, no elephant, there is no car, no fire, no water on the screen. It's just a screen, it's a projection. But when it's a very good movie, knowing well that it is all a projection of some film, we watch every minute. We do not want to miss anything. So we love the movie and we appreciate. This universe deserves to be loved in that sense. We appreciate the grandeur of the universe. However, once more, on a fundamental level, whether that is real or pure awareness is real, which one among these two remains unnegated? When we say this question, then we find that pure awareness, chit, sat and chit, that's how we put it. Pure existence, sat, and pure consciousness or pure awareness, chit, they are unquestionably true. Though we say they as though they are more than one, philosophy makes it further clear that they are actually one. One truth which is referred to as Sat in some respect and referred to as Chit in another sense. It is one truth only. They are not two, not even are they two sides of the same truth. This Sat Chit alone is true. So Advaita Vedanta takes this expression Sarupaha seriously and says rest of it is a superimposition. Rest of it is coming one notch below. Fire is huge and spark is small. God is Sarvajna, Jiva is Alpajna. God is all knowing, Jiva is knowing very little. Or God is Sarva Shakta and Jiva is Alpa Shakta. God is all powerful, an individual soul has very limited power. These are all when you come one notch below and identify with upadhis. If one were to be free of any identification with upadhis, then both God and man are rediscovered to be samana rupaha. Sahasrashaha prabhavante sarupaha, and Rishi Angiras himself emphasizes tata aksharat vividaha somya bhavaha. Instead of using the word jivaha, the word used here is bhavaha. What is bhava? Bhavati iti bhavaha or bhavanti iti bhavaha. Those that come into being. So reference is to jivas, individual souls. Vividaha. Human beings themselves have vast variety. And in addition to human beings, you have plants and animals and birds and aquatic creatures and so on. In each category, there are countless sub-varieties. So all living beings, sarve vividaha bhavaha somya. Soma means moon. Somavat priyadarshanaha is someone pleasing like the moon. He is somya. In some English translations, the word somya is put as, oh, good-looking one. I saw that today in Swami Gambhirananda's translation. Good-looking one. Now you may wonder, why are Upanishads concerned with this good-looking and not good-looking, etc.? We say when Upanishad uses the expression somya and it means good-looking, it is not good-looking in those gross terms. True beauty is one's nature. One is cheerful, one is loving, one is lovable, one is pure, one's ways are clean, then that is true good-looking. Rest of it, going by some concept, some fancy, some strange ideas, it's all a conditioning. Like somebody may believe a long nose is good-looking. Somebody else may have a fancy. Short nose makes somebody pretty. So some people like large eyes, some people like small eyes. Some people like girls or boys who are little well built. Some others are extra particular on slim boys and slim girls. These are secondary. Here Somya therefore is not so much about physically speaking, physical good looks, but Somya is, oh my student, you have won my heart by your sincere interest in this exploration into truth. Good looking, therefore, is in terms of the sincerity and purity on the part of the student. Beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, is an old statement. And the Rishi Angiras has eyes that are most mature. Rishi Angiras would not care for some kind of physical looks. Therefore, even if Somya is translated as good looking, please take it as the beautiful qualities of head and heart that are appreciated. O Somya, O dear Shaunaka in this particular dialogue, Aksharat Vividaha Bhavaha Prajayante. In the context of metaphor, the word used was Prabhavante, and here it is Prajayante, emerge. Elsewhere, the illustration is given of a number of bubbles rising on the surface of an ocean. After some time, the bubble breaks and the filmy layer, which is made of water, again merges back in the water. Here, tatra cha eva apiyanti. Apiyanti literally means they return. Yanti means go out. Apiyanti means come back. Apiyanti is return or go towards fire. Tatra cha eva apiyanti. This now has to be understood in this way. This coming and going is apparent. That is within the frame of reference of adhyāropa, deliberate superimposition. And when we see this coming, this going, this number, and then all of them becoming one, etc., as part of a teaching methodology, the truth, if it were to be said in plain terms, is simply Brahman alone was, is, and will be. Brahman never becomes anything. Brahman doesn't give rise to anything. And nothing goes back to Brahman because there is nothing other than Brahman. Sadeva Somya idamagra asit ekameva advitiyam Brahma is a statement from Samavedas Chandogya Upanishad. Sat eva, there is truth only. Ekam, it is one. And not one in the way you count. I give you 5 mangoes and you take one and say 1. Then you take the second and 2, 3, 4, and 5. You keep 5 mangoes. So when you picked up the first mango, you said very loudly, 1. That one is not ekam in the Upanishadic context. That one, you lift one mango and put it this right side and say loudly, 1, and then you take a second one. You see, that usage of the word 1 leaves room for a second mango, for a third mango, for a fourth mango. So Rishi Uddalaka in Chandogya Upanishad says, Ekam eva advitiyam. Brahma is one without a second. So the misunderstanding of one among 1, 2, 3, 4 is allayed thereby. So here, Advaita Vedanta is reflected in the expression, they arise and they go back. And this rising and falling is adhyāropa, superimposition, in a manner of saying. Now you say, what manner of saying? There is nothing called manner of saying. When it is said like that, it has to be taken like that. Sorry. In life, everywhere, lot of things are said in a manner of saying. What do you mean? After several centuries of knowing that the sun doesn't rise and fall or set, it is the earth which rotates around its axis. Don't we all say even today, let's go watch the sunrise? If you are in Chennai, talking of India, and you are there for a couple of days, and the hotel, guest house, or some friend's house where you are staying is near the beach, then you will say the previous night itself, tomorrow morning shall we go to the sea and see the sunrise? And if you are in Goa, if you are in Bangalore, or one of the beaches of Kerala or Mumbai, so many cities on the west coast of India, similar is the excitement about going and watching sunset. Right? So we talk about sun rises here. What time is the sun rising today? We say. So it is in a manner of saying. Those who are saying and those who are hearing, all of them know that the sun really doesn't rise. But it seems to be so. Likewise, this prabhavante and tatra eva apiyanti are, Adi Shankara argues, in a manner of saying, actually, in the light of many other more powerful statements as elsewhere, in the light of many mukhya vakyas, mukhya means main, these descriptions become gauna, secondary. The difference between the three schools of Vedanta, Advaita Vedanta, Dvaita Vedanta, Vishistadvaita Vedanta, the difference is just this. In the Upanishads, there are statements, let's call them of three kinds. Kind A, kind B, and kind C. All these three kinds are present. They are very much present. The three kinds of statements are present in Bhagavad Gita also, A, B, C. What are A, B, and C? There are statements here and there in the Prasthanatraya, Gita, Upanishads, and Brahma Sutras. There are statements here and there which are of the kind A, means which express Advaita. One and one alone is the truth. One without a second. The second kind, B, in a manner of saying, represents Dvaita. God is God and we are Jivas. For heaven's sake, don't equate them. God and man are separate. That is kind B. Scattered across the Upanishads or Gita or Brahma Sutras, you have such statements. Then you have the type of statement C, where the sense is God is the whole and every one of us, man, is part. Mama eva amsho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. Chapter 15 of Gita, the word amsha is used. Mama amshaha jiva bhuta. Sri Krishna says. So that is kind C. Now, Sri Krishna himself says at other places Advaita in the Gita, and yet other places speaks Dvaita. So what you take as primary and what you take as secondary is up to you. And Sri Shankaracharya takes the statements of the kind A as primary. Like we said, Chandogya, Sadeva Somya, Idamagra Asit, Ekameva, as though that is not enough, Advitiya, there is nothing other than that. And there are many such statements, not just one or two. Hundreds, if not thousands. So they are the basis. Now coming to this mantra, therefore, this rising and falling, emerging and merging back are to be taken as gauna. In his commentary, Shankaracharya says, in a manner of saying, when, let us say, you have a pot and the pot has a number of holes, sushira, small holes, or holes of different sizes. A pot, a clay pot, has 3 holes of very small size, 5 holes, this is my elaboration, 5 holes of a little larger size, and 12 holes of much larger size, all in a large clay pot. So you may say this is a small hole, that is a big hole. See, here there is more space, or your whole hand can go in this. Here a pencil can go in. Over there an ant can enter and go in. You may say a number of things. But by then, somebody who doesn't like any philosophy comes with a big stick and breaks that pot. The pot is torn, broken to 20 pieces. Then these three or four people who were talking of big hole and small hole, and they look at each other. Where are the holes? All the holes are gone. There is space. So earlier when the holes were seen, where was space? Space was, is, and will be. Space is the truth. The holes, large holes and small holes and tiny holes, etc., they have a validity in a certain perspective. That's about it. Otherwise, they don't have unquestionable validity. What has unquestionable validity is space. In the case of that pot, and pot having a number of holes of different sizes. In the theme proper, what is unquestionably true is God, you and I, all living beings, all of us are Sat Chit. We are and we are aware. Existence and pure consciousness. Even in our worst moments, on the journey of spirituality also, sometimes you and I are in a very bad shape. We as though undid a whole lot of our sadhana, and we are worse than how we were when we began. Long ago, when we started all our spirituality, we were so egoistic, so lusty, so greedy, so angry, etc., etc. And now, one fine morning, we discover that all of them have come back. And we say, maybe I am worse than how I was when I began. I am telling you, even at such worst moments, we are Sat Chit Ananda only. This is a bit mind-boggling, but that is where you need to understand it very carefully. It's all play of the mind. Even when the most tragic scene is shot on the cinema screen is the same as it was when things were all wonderful. In some movies, we find a man falls in love with a woman and they are having happiest times. There's a song, there's a dance in a park and all that. Later on, their relationship gets spoiled. They suspect each other. They even have murderous ideas about each other. Such that kind of story. What difference does it make to the screen? The screen is the same. Likewise, with proper Vedanta training, we will be able to see the play of the mind. And however wretched our mind may seem one fine morning, this Vedantic insight will help us smile at it inwardly. Therefore, the Avyaya Tattva, changeless truth in our existence, is pointed out in so many ways. And using metaphors, using logic, using one's own personal experience, as they say, Shruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti. Shruti is Vedic statements, Yukti is logic, Anubhuti is our own personal experience. Every day when we are in deep sleep, we personally experience absence of conflict, absence of low self-esteem, or absence of pride and so on. And we don't have to be in deep sleep. Even when we are awake, here and there, we do experience quietude. And Vedanta says, think of that as your true nature. Therefore, as I began saying, this webinar is not about something out of the way, it is a refresher. It is to make once more clear, to make it clear once more how this apparent division between God and man goes away as we purify our mind and look at the truth without any conditioning, without bias, without the pressure of memories, etc. Thus, advaita, non-duality, or oneness between God and man at that purest level, which every one of us is capable of reaching through proper preparation, is the gist of this mantra. We have thus covered this very fundamental topic of Advaita Vedanta. Today is a very special day. Today, as the sun rose in the morning in India, we got some news that saddened us. A great Vedantin, a wonderful Shastrajna, Swami Subodhananda, left his body in Siddhbadi in Himachal Pradesh. A lot of us knew him, a lot of us had a lot of interaction with him. He was a very lovely, wonderful person. He joined the ashram in Himachal Pradesh somewhere in 1981. For 39 years, he was so devoted to Vedanta study and teaching. First, he was a student, then several, maybe 6 or 7 courses. He taught so many brahmacharis and brahmacharinis. They became swamis and swaminis. And above all, his love for Shastra was most notable. He would call everybody and say, let us discuss this statement, let us discuss that shloka. And he would revel in this Shastra Charcha or Shastra Vichara, and gifted with excellent Sanskrit and very chaste, highly Sanskritized and beautiful Hindi. His work was really remarkable. A good human being, a good scholar, a saintly person, and he left the body. The body was just about 62 years old. That's what saddens us. We'll always miss him. On behalf of all of you and on my own behalf, I pray, Lord, to bless the soul of Swami Subodhananda with the ultimate spiritual excellence. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Om Namah Paramarshibhyaha. Om. Over to organizers to announce how exactly in this Zoom session of webinar people can ask questions. And I think...
Hari Om, Swamiji, can I make that announcement?
Please do.
Yes. As Vivaji had said at the beginning, question can be asked in 2 ways. One is where you can write the question itself in the chat box. Else, if you would prefer to speak, please write in the chat box that you would like to be unmuted so we can unmute you.
There are some text questions. May I pick up one?
Please, Swamiji, yes.
Okay. Katyayani has a question. Beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder. To every child, the mother is the most beautiful, irrespective of physical beauty. Well said. I think it is our perception of things that enables us to attract to things, ideas, or even belief system. Advait, desirable, or whole part isn't our individual experience. Isn't our individual experience Samyak Darshan? irrespective of our knowledge? Uh, yeah, our present perception, where again and again we experience plurality and duality. I am especially fond of saying that whenever we dislike somebody, whenever we actually judge somebody to be in an advantageous position and we judge ourselves to be disadvantaged, that is Dvaita, that is duality. Therefore, jealousy can arise only in duality. And pride, I have succeeded where all these people failed, that kind of pride, that also can arise only in duality. So I'm fond of saying that that kind of experience is confirmation of Dvaita, but the Advaita Vedanta says it is not Samyak Darshana. So jealousy or pride or some other negative emotion are not part of Samyak Darshana. They are erroneous seeing. In erroneous seeing, they are experienced. So, for example, a snake upon the rope. The snake which causes fear to us, in that example, somewhere there could be a real snake, it may not be a rope at all. That is different. In the example of a rope appearing as a snake, the fear that arises out of seeing the snake is not Samyak Darshana. Seeing the rope and being free from fear is Samyak Darshana. I meant Advaita Dvait, whole part. Yeah, so the position is all these three come to human experience. That is Vishishta which is part and whole. Dvaita, God is separate, man is separate. And Advaita, God and man are one. All these three have been experienced, have been intuitively seen by different people. Shankara saw Dvaita and a whole lot of others. In recent times, Ramana Maharshi was so established in Advaita Darshana. And we don't say Madhvacharya or Ramanujacharya and a number of them following those two schools of thought were liars or talking false. No, they experienced that God is protecting us and we are at His mercy. God says, looks, takes care of us. They experienced that sweet bhakti with duality, and they thought that is the ultimate truth. And Vishishtadvaita, that being part of God, all of them were expressing what they felt. And we are Advaita teachers. To us, it appears that the highest truth was what Shankara experienced. So faith comes in here. Faith comes in here. So I often say, be true to your faith. If Dvaita appeals to you, embrace it, study it, enjoy it, but perhaps you should avoid calling other schools false. You may humbly say, I don't understand that view. This I have verified and I am enjoying. Sachin has a question. Dvaita and Vishishtadvaita are mental perceptions. And in Vishishtadvaita, Ansha is talked. But we have to take Ansha as part without any boundary to the whole. Yeah. Ansha is the part and the whole has no boundary. However, Sri Ramanujacharya apparently said that Ansha and Anshi, the whole, are possible that way. In Advaita, the moment something has a boundary, it is no more Ananta, it is finite. And what is finite is subject to death. Therefore, Advaita looks at God and man being separate, being a terrible scenario. Once God and man are separate, man would limit God, God will limit man. And God that is limited by there being something other than him would be subject to decay. This is the logic in Advaita Vedanta. So the other two schools say that need not be so. And they have their own explanations. Okay, we'll come back to Katyayani who has another question. But meanwhile, Rekha Ramani says, is Bhakti Yoga alone enough in getting moksha? Like saying prayers, doing meditation, etc. with pure love. In a sense, it is alone. I would not dispute it. But we say it is alone in the sense it brings you so high, and then jnana comes in from somewhere. A guru who gives you jnana will come along and your mind will receive. So there is no compromise in saying the last lap before realization is jnana, but bhakti facilitates that. Bhakti is like was a good contractor. You give the contract to bhakti. Bhakti will then get you whatever you need. If jnana is needed, bhakti, it is bhakti's responsibility. At the end, towards the end, the great height of bhakti, it will bring jnana into your mind. And jnana is the key that opens the vaults of realization. We went for Zoom in order that people can ask vocally because the earlier software was giving problems. Therefore, please do feel free to, as the announcer said, just write, I want to ask a question. I think that's what Katyayani perhaps meant. I have a question. So can organizers enable the microphone of Katyayani Surya Devara so she can ask question?
Yes, Swamiji.
And
Swamiji, Subramaniam Boy
Pranams.
Reddy has. Sorry. Please go ahead. Sorry.
Hari Om Swami, Subramaniam from Dallas.
okay.
Is a the
Please
play of
turn your
mind.
at this time turn your video also on so people see who is asking.
Okay. Yes.
So you use the software. Yeah.
Hari Om Swamiji.
Hari Om.
Just you talked about the play of mind and also purification as a practical thing. At the end of every day, you take few minutes to reflect on the day activities, observe the play of mind. Will it also lead to purification as a means to daily reflection? I want your comment on that.
Yes. If anyone can spend a little time at the end of the day, introspect, look at all his words and actions during the day. Where was I right? Where was I wrong? And so on. That leads to wonderful purification. In fact, when teachers advise us, stay silent, be quiet, rather than a stony silence, it is actually time for introspection, understanding, and need not necessarily be going back to the morning or afternoon. To take a dispassionate look at the thoughts rising at that time also is a part of that practice of silence. So yes, definitely it helps. Good question. Very practical sadhana question.
Thank you so much.
Katyayani ji, you may go ahead if you wish to ask your
Yes.
question. You are unmute.
Pranam Swamiji.
Would you like to turn your camera on? It is on the left bottom left.
Okay.
Of course, the thing is forced. We thought, yeah, we are seeing you. Yes.
Pranam Swamiji.
Namaste.
Just first one is a comment. I was being misunderstood with the first question due to typos. I was mentioning the three advaita, dvaita, and whole Vishishtadvaita. Even everything at the end of the day boils down to our own perception, our own personal experience. So the reason I was saying that, even though I grew up mostly with the Dvaita concept, it never happened to me. I was not that I'm against bhakti or rituals, but I have never done in my entire life. But I would go to temple with my mom and I would just be there, but it never happened inside to me all these years, not even once.
Yeah.
So for me, the perception of God is a close friend to me somewhere. That's the way I see it. And I never asked him anything for myself or for anybody, just
Yeah.
common good, whatever it is. So my comment and question, my first one is whether it is Dvaita or Advaita. My mom is very, very ritual. She truly, truly believed in God, and she did every possible thing to. So I saw both sides of the coin in a way. So my question is, but at the end of the day, isn't it our own perception and personal experience that enable us to see things and what you call samyak darshan, seeing God within us or as a spark going back to Him, or however we perceive? So that was my
Yeah.
comment on
I
that.
do agree. At the end of the day, it's your perception, your experience that matters to you.
So
But
yeah,
these
I
great
didn't mean
teachers say,
jealousy or greed.
right, these great teachers like Shankara say, there are many more miles to go. We say, fine.
Yes.
But to me, this is the truth at this moment. See, in that sense, there are some people who say, I don't want any of these Dvaita, Advaita, or Vishishta Advaita. The only truth that I see is life is meant for serving others. We say, God bless you, and go ahead. Because for them, that
Yes.
is the seva to others. Paropakara is life. Keep all your philosophy out of the windows, they will say. And we say, thank you. We respect you, and hopefully you respect us.
Yes. And my second request is, you mentioned Sruti, Yukti, and Anubhuti. Could
Correct,
you
correct.
please briefly explain that one more time?
Yeah,
You talked about,
Shruti is Veda Vakya. So it is in the context of a certain truth. Right? So that truth, are there Vedic statements in support of that? Suppose there are, then you say Shruti is, you tick yes. There are Vedic statements. Or there are Gita shlokas. That is Shruti. Shruti literally is Veda only, not Gita. Scriptural authority. And Smriti, second Yukti. Does it make sense? Is it logical? Suppose Adi Shankara himself says, suppose in the Veda somewhere you find a statement, fire is sometimes cold. During December and January, fire is cold. That would be illogical. So Shankara says, even if the Vedas were to say fire is cold, we will never accept it because it is Yukti Viruddha. So it should make sense. It should be possible. You know. So if something is possible, then you say, yeah, that is Yukti, in line with Yukti. Anubhuti is your own experience, maybe in bits and pieces, maybe in indirectly, like deep sleep. You do see in deep sleep no world at all. All along you thought world was, but I did not see it. But Vedanta says you experienced absence of world. Don't forget that. Hold on to it. So Anubhuti
thank
is
you.
personal experience.
Thank you.
Who else? Next person. A few people keeping the video doesn't disturb much, so that's all right. In the video on.
Jyoti Verma ji had raised her hands. I don't know.
Oh, really?
Yes,
I did not
yes.
notice. Then
Hari
here
Om
is.
Swamiji.
Please do
Hari
ask.
Om. There are three kinds of, it's actually a follow-up of Kartiyani's question and the answer. The three kinds, Dvaita, Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishta Advaita.
Yeah.
Is it normal to feel Advaita and Dvaita in us at times? Sometimes when we pray to God, it becomes like God is up there that we are praying.
Yeah.
And then when we are really studying the scriptures, the Upanishads and such scriptural texts, we feel the oneness. So it goes sort of back and forth rather than staying in one. Is it?
Yeah, that is the case with a lot of us. But the teachers, the lofty teachers say, if you go deeper into Advaita Vedanta, then even when you pray, you don't stop praying, but the quality and the experience of praying changes. You will have a strong thought that, hey, really, God is not only the one receiving the prayer, God only is doing this prayer through this body, through this person. God only is making me pray here and receiving the prayer on the stage, on the pedestal. So, you and me can enjoy the poetry of it.
Mm-hmm.
God makes me pray and God receives. That is beautiful poetry for us. But our personal experience is, who are we to be one with? We are nowhere near Him
Right.
because of a very strong and long-standing conditioning. So my answer to your question is, eventually Advaita will pervade even the prayer time.
Okay.
Presently, you are right. We all
It
experience
feels.
duality during prayer and appreciate Advaita during our studies.
Okay, Swamiji, thank you.
Welcome.
Hari
Welcome.
Om.
Swamiji, Meera ji wants, she has written a question, not a question, but something. Yeah,
Say
it's
again the name.
Meera. It's written there.
Aha.
In the chat box it is there. I tried to unmute her, but she is not unmuting herself.
Is that so? Meera to everyone.
Hmm.
Namaskara Swamiji, not a question. Do you remember what Hanuman said to Rama? Yeah, I very much remember. That's a famous shloka which expresses Dvaita, Vishishtadvaita and Advaita in one single shloka. But you ask a Madhva or a Vishishtadvaiti, they question the authenticity of that shloka. They say some Advaitin cooked this up. That's a different issue. But the shloka goes like this. Deha buddhya dasoham jiva buddhya twadamshakaha atma buddhya tvamevaham iti me nischita matihi. There is a shloka. It's not in Valmiki Ramayana. It's not in Bhagavatam or in one of the recognized texts, unless in some version in the homes of some Advaitins. So Deha Buddhya, when I look at myself as body, I am servant, Lord, you are the master. Jiva Buddhya, once I look at myself as the Jiva, the samsari Atma, then I am part and you are whole. And Atma Buddhya, when I look at myself as the birthless, deathless, asansari Atma, Tvameva Aham, I am you, you are me. Iti me nishchita matihi. This is a very pretty simple shloka, but whether it was originally given by rishis or some Advaita scholar added it is a different question. Just like Gita Dhyana Shloka, Advaita Amrita Varshini. So the Madhvas and Sri Vaishnavas question that. They say that shloka is prepared by your camp. It is not from the original sources, which is okay. It's not in Valmiki, not in Tulsi. Yeah. Right. Anyone else? Yeah, if you have a question, you are welcome to ask. Organizers will turn your microphone on. Then you may turn your video on also. Of course, this is a bit new to you, this Zoom software for webinar, especially to use it as a platform to ask questions. One new message. Let's see what that is. That is a thank you and again thank you and Hari Om. Balakrishnan sir says from Chennai, Swami Subodhanandi Samadhi is a shocking news for all of us at an unexpected moment. I pray the Almighty to raise the noble soul in peace. Yeah. May his soul rise in peace. R.I.P. Rise in peace. He dropped the body pretty young. Actually, he is about a year younger to me. Though in the Chinmaya mission, he was more senior than I was. Yeah, big loss. It's very shocking. Right. Especially for all those who used to go to Siddhbari. To think of Siddhbari without Subodhananji is so difficult. Okay, Sachin has a question. I am subject to the objects around me. What is it to be objective? Be objective means what? Yeah, see, a tennis ball may be around you. It's an object. But every time if you look at tennis ball, suppose you remember some incident of your high school days and your mind goes to the headmaster or the sports teacher, so then you lost your objectivity. Though the object is in front of you, your mind is going away. If you see a tennis ball and I ask you, what are you seeing? You say, it's a tennis ball, full stop. I'm seeing a tennis ball, period. Then you are objective. So to see things just as they are without bringing other things. Like the joke goes, a rose was lifted in the air and shown to two young men. What is this? This is some humor also. So A said it is a rose. He is objective. He is seeing the rose as a rose. B looked at the rose and started crying. So they asked, why are you crying? She did not accept it when I gave it to her. So he remembers some long back, some romance which didn't work out for him. I gave a rose to her and she did not. She walked away and threw it by the side or something. So this is an exaggeration. Being objective means not taking anything to heart. Scientists need greatest objectivity. Subject means the ego, its desire, its all kinds of emotions come into picture. So being objective is not dry without emotion, but being objective means keeping emotions under check. See, emotions are in all of us. But if we can keep our emotions under check without letting them interfere with our duty, then we are objective. The objective is to see things as they are, to do what needs to be done with emotions under reasonable control. I guess. Oh, Ravi Prakash says, in awareness, if thought emerges, is space. Could you please explain? In awareness, if thought emerges, there is space. I think there is missing. Yeah, see, space is after all an analogy. It's only an analogy, drishtanta. Awareness is more sukshma, subtler than space. So when there is awareness, not only physical objects, but also thoughts, emotions, all are noticed. So in that sense, awareness is sometimes compared with space, but actually it is subtler than space. So thoughts emerge and subside in awareness. Like dust particles dance in a beam of sunlight. The sunlight is something which can accommodate those dust particles. The dust particles are noticed because of sunlight. So sunlight is superior. Awareness is far superior to thoughts and emotions. Prasad to everyone. Could you please comment on the etymology of the word nididhyasana and also elaborate on the process? See, etymology is there is a verbal root dhyai, dhyayati. Dhyai means to meditate. And etymologically, that is going by how the word is created, ni means nishchayena, having no doubt, and didhyasana is what we call desiderative. Desiderative means wanting to do what is implied by the word. For example, jna is to know, jnanam, Jidnasa is wanting to know. Pa is to drink, pibati. Pipasa is thirst, wanting to drink. So didhyasana is eagerness to stay on the same appreciation, stay on the same understanding. Over there, though it is desiderative, that eagerness has to be put on the back seat. It is nothing but steady contemplation and staying in the same understanding. If you have a tiny inkling, if you have a tiny intuitive grasp, yeah, sin and merit don't touch me. Wow, I think I'm able to see. Stay there. If you stay there, that is nididhyasana. How did you arrive at such a beautiful insight? Because of manana. So manana removes doubts and confusions and gives you some really elevating insights. And then staying in that insight is the process. And the process is nothing but a little bit of care. Take care, because suddenly some old thought comes. So if we are careful, we don't allow the old thought to hijack us. We say, come later. So carefulness. So the process of nididhyasana is exercise of care.
But Swamiji,
Yes, Prasad.
isn't it a sequential thing that you have the background of the Shruti and then you reflect on the validity and
then come to manana.
your own understanding? But actually, when you get to the stage of nididhyasana, you're concentrating on no thought at all. It's basically like a blank slate. Isn't that from a standpoint of meditation, isn't that the nature of true nididhyasana? Is the mind is
maybe there is no
totally
thought,
alert, but totally without thought.
See, that calls for what you mean by thought. Suppose by thought you mean some words and some concepts, etc. Yeah, that has no place in nididhyasana. But I sometimes use the word thought as the container of an understanding. So nididhyasana definitely is not some dumb state of no thought. It is a state where there is the blessing of an understanding. Therefore, I also said a while ago, intuitive grasp or a certain insight. Like you have been looking for something and then you get an intuitive grasp. I think it's in that drawer. So you may not even use the word drawer. You may not use particular word of English or Telugu, Hindi or Sanskrit. But you suddenly get, hey, wait a minute. I think it's there. And then you move towards that drawer. So concrete words in any language constituting thought may not have any place in nididhyasana, but a certain understanding which puts you in a different camp. Sometimes it is used to describe in negational language. The understanding that I am the body has gone away. So what has departed is also sometimes the way to describe it.
But won't someone like,
I would say, huh?
won't someone like Raman Maharshi say, be totally still and in the silent awareness?
But that is subject to interpretation. Even if Maharshi said, be totally still, probably he himself at some other place said, by still I don't mean stillness of a stone. By still I mean by stillness there is appreciation of one's true nature. So he may put his 2 cents at another place. Because that is why we say all said and done, we really don't know what is the final statement. Because a statement here gets clarified somewhere else by the same Mahatma. And in the standard scriptural heritage also, for every Bhashya line, there is a vritti. On vritti statement, there is somebody else's something else, Vartika. So it has, on one hand, helped a lot of seekers because you have multiple commentaries. On the other, it has created more confusion. So sometimes they say, don't read anything else, read only Bhashya. Or like Hare Krishna people say to everybody, don't read anybody's commentary on Gita, read only Gita original. And then they say whisperingly, read Prabhupada's commentary, it's okay.
Thank you, Swamiji.
So
Hari Om.
you have a commentary, there is a problem, that fear that the commentator might have interpreted wrongly. If you don't have a commentary, you stick only to the original Gita or Upanishad. Some places you are lost, you don't know what is. So it's a debate. So we give what we understand.
Swamiji, Gargi has a question.
Right. So Gargi, would you like to speak up or shall I read your...
I tried to unmute, but she's not unmuting by herself.
Okay, then let's read her words. Are the world, the body and mind superimpositions, teaching tools. They are both. That is, they are superimpositions of both kinds. See, some superimpositions are by man himself. They are not teaching tools. So body, the scripture didn't say you have a body. I am saying I have a body. The scripture then takes the body, takes the mind, takes this world, which we are anyhow seeing. So Jiva Krita Adhyasa is there. Then Jiva Krita Adhyasa or Jiva Krita Adhyāropa is there. Then the scripture puts it in a perspective, gives its own explanations. Therefore, with respect to the world, the body and mind, there is a joint partnership here. Every Jiva, without any Shastra coming into his life, already is talking of the body, mind and the world. Then the scriptures come and give some more, enhancements, embellishments to those three in order to take you out of them. Whereas this Annamaya Atma, Pranamaya Atma, etc., Jiva doesn't bring them on his own. It is only the Shastra which introduces those words. So Adhyāropa is of two kinds, Jiva Krita Adhyāropa and Shastra Krita Adhyāropa. The three that you have used are shared by both. Jiva api lokasya vishaye, dehasya vishaye, manaso vishaye, jiva api vadati eva, shastrani api vadanti. Therefore, they both are endorsing it. But a number of other ideas are given only by Shastra as a teaching tool. There it is only teaching tool.
Mr. CN has some humble submissions.
Who?
CN, it's in the chat box. Just about.
CM. Swamiji, Hari Om, you have put the concepts in such simple way, even a layman or beginner like myself am able to understand, appreciate. Thank you. That is great encouragement to somebody like me, though I don't really believe I have made it so simple. So, anyway, thank you for those encouraging words.
Shama.
Yes, I noticed that name somewhere. Where is it gone now?
Our mic is on.
Okay, then she may please speak. Shama or Shama. Or... Microphone is on, I believe.
Oh, Hari Om Swamiji.
Oh, Shama.
Yes, Shyam Sundar.
Yes, Shyam Sundar. Please speak up. Yeah.
The Nididhyasana is also called a Viparita Bhavana, right?
No, Nididhyasana is not Viparita Bhavana. Nididhyasana is to dismiss Viparita Bhavana. See, Viparita Bhavana, Viparita means opposite. I am Atma, but somehow this opposite notion, I am the body, tends to pitch in, tends to barge in. And by staying steady in your new understanding, you weaken those Viparita Bhavana, you weaken those contrary thoughts. Viparita Bhavana means contrary thoughts. The Shastra has blessed you, your own Shravana and Manana have blessed you with a new understanding. Nididhyasana is to stay in that new understanding and weaken and dismiss Viparita Bhavana.
Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah. Actually, you are right. They say Shravana is Tatparya Nirnaya, Manana is Samshaya Nivarana,
Right.
and Nididhyasana is Viparita Bhavana Nivarana, dismissal. We'll take one last question unless there is.
I think Aruna ji had raised her hand. We have unmuted her. You also.
Huh? No question?
Aruna B.R.
Aruna BR, yes,
Yeah,
from
but now she
Bangalore.
has muted both audio and video. Maybe just like that, hand raised.
Oh, I see. Oh, she has unmuted just like that. Okay. She may not have a question.
Yeah. First she raised her hand, so I helped her, but I think she doesn't have any question.
Maybe she's just trying out some features of
Correct,
Zoom
correct.
without being very. Did you say something, Aruna? I can see her here. No, her mic is now again muted.
Yeah.
All right. And it's much time also, 10 p.m. in India, 9:30 a.m. in California and other places, other time. Thank you. We'll meet again in 2 weeks. Most probably next week we will have a webinar on Mount Everest expedition by a good friend of ours. You will all get the invitation. Try to join for a change. All right. Hari Om. Namaste.
Pranam Swami.
Hari Om. Hari Om.